Oh, Jacob, you don't know.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you for all the people attending today. There were a lot of things said today, and one thing seems to be reoccurring, is the wrath of your party when you don't agree with them. I remember well when the Renew's Bailey Bridge put in the 70s hadn't been maintained well from 1976 until 1990. So from 90 onward, they performed regular maintenance. Bureaucracy wanted to remove the bridge and send people from Renews up the backside, which would remove the bridge. It wasn't pretty, but after several trips into the room with fingers pointed at my face, I got my own way for the people in that area. The people of Napan don't realize this, but I threatened to not run in the election if they close the Napan school. I've never spoke of that before, and you likely will see that school close in a few weeks. Well, at least the decision to make it close. I also remember well the bureaucrats in the Department of Natural Resources determined that it was high time that people in the rural areas of Dogtown, Boys Town, and Blackville, and Sunny Corner, and some other areas that are not in my constituency, it was high time that they were not allowed to go in and cut firewood because they were all stealing and trying to make a profit. And Skitters were so hard on the forest floor that they just had to be banned. And then they sent a former mayor and DFO officer from Dogtown in to sit at a block while his relative cut his wood, while his wife was homesick, while his electricity was out at his house. I called Vancouver, where the Premier was, and Paul Robichaud, the Minister of Natural Resources, and I said, you've got 12 hours to fix it. Oh no, we're not fixing that, we can't fix that, we're on a big trip out here, and it's a big resource development thing. And they were doing their job for being out there. And then I got a call from a chief of staff telling me how important my seat was to their chances of winning the election. I gave them 12 hours, and 12 hours later, everybody was back in cutting firewood. And the 1997 or 8 law that's on the back of the personal use permit that forces people to sit at the block, that was overturned, and they did not have to do that either. 1 month after the election, Skitters were banned, and I think they're dealing with worse problems now than they had in the summer before the election. My opinions vary. You can well imagine the day that Arbeck was refusing to hire local, and I was standing out there at 5 o'clock in the morning amidst a group of very unhappy union and non-union employees. Arbeck was by far the most popular announcement that I think we were involved in at the local level. It's certainly one of them. I considered it an achievement. But at 4:30 in the morning, when people came to my door and woke me up, I could end up on one of these milk cartons, or I could go and protest the very company that we helped get started. There are times that the public does not always see the stresses and the efforts you put in when you don't agree with them. My problem, if I had one, is that I'm loyal. I'm a loyal guy. I've always been that way, no matter what I was involved in. So sometimes you bite your lip and you vote for something that you wish you could vote against. But the comments that you would get in trouble if you do that are very true. I spent last weekend at Belle Isle Bay at Dr. Jim Parrott's annual, I think he calls it the hoedown. You can imagine well the consequences Jim Parrott faced when he spoke his mind. And there were other people as well. But I wanted to say a few things about some potential things that are happening as well as some solutions. The Hebert recycling file is one of the more interesting files that I've seen. Something is inherently wrong, and I can't put my finger on just exactly where it's coming from. Sometimes I think it's party politics, other times I think it's just within Encore, and other times I think it's something that somebody cooked up and followed through with it. Hebert Recycling has made technological advances, and they basically have set the market all by themselves. They're the best at what they do. So for Encore to want to go in another direction is so strange that I don't have words for it. I'll continue to push to try to help them, But we have a classic case here of two MLAs that just don't know how powerful they are. Tanker, I seen him here earlier. He figured out how powerful he could be when his government had a very small majority. I think he was the majority. That's a great, I wish I could have been in that situation, Tanker. But I think Lisa and Billy, with only a few extra seats, Lisa's case, I'm doubtful that she understands, but I'm not taking up for her. She hasn't been there very long, and maybe she doesn't understand how powerful she could be. Now, Billy, on the other side, sometimes we got protested so much as a government that I forgot who was protesting us. And I'm serious, and the reason I say that is not because I don't remember the big issues and why they were protesting, because I certainly do. But when nobody was protesting, Billy would organize one. He'd bring out every group, some that I didn't hear of before, and I remember one guy looked at me and he said, we were at Blue Drop Industries. I think they make smartboard technology. They're a good company, and we were making an investment in the company, and they were coming out with some new technology. And we were walking through the lineup, and everybody was protesting us, and one guy said, do you know why I'm here? And I said, no. And he said, me neither. But Billy told him to go. So you know what I mean? Like, this is not a normal way to govern, and this government's not listening. They're not listening to anything. And I wish I had a perfect answer for you, but they did come and listen this week, but I mean, what did they really feel? They would bring in the same old hacks from the former government, which I think were hated even more than us, if that's possible. Then they set them on a stage to answer the questions, to provide the same message points that you've been provided for months now. I mean, what type of arrogance would have them do that without providing something tangible? It would be far-fetched to believe they could come in and solve He-Bears, Miramichi Lumber, P3, and any other issues there are all in one moment, although it's possible. But you think they would have at least come in and found a solution for one of them. I don't understand why they would come otherwise. You're just, and some advice I could give to the people upset today. The City Council and the Chamber of Commerce, you've got to get at them a little more. When I was a part of the governing party, and let's be honest about it, we had 42 people. I was one of the youngest people, and I was one of the most inexperienced. I wasn't a power broker by any stretch. That's parts for sure. But you need to get after the city and the chamber, because they held us accountable. They held us accountable for hospitals that were not closing. I could go on and on about so much, I can't even remember it all, but you need to get at them, because they're your representation here in the city, and you want them working for you too. It's great to have David Kuhn, Chris Austin, Wes Gullison, Cecile Casista, and all the many groups you've had here today. But get the city on board, put some pressure on them, put some pressure on the Chamber of Commerce. And like I say, I mean, what did they really think the other night? Did they really think that we would feel grateful or fortunate that they graced us with their ministerial presence? People wanted some sort of change, several, and they didn't offer any. Another thing I would like to say is concerning Miramichi Lumber. The one law that perhaps we need a law that trumps the forestry plan, which I'm a part of, and that law has to bind a certain percentage of allocation to local companies. Now, before 1982, especially in the 1970s, there was something called the spirit of the wood, and I've read it once, and it's kind of passed my mind, but essentially the wood was the spirit that could keep the people going. And because of 1982, every government since then, including my own that I was with, we made it a little bit worse. Maybe we even made it far worse. But every government since then has pushed that envelope a little further along. And I think that is an inherent problem we have. We have a company that wants to build a pellet mill. I never hear about it. I don't know no one's talking about it. I never hear, I've talked to the owner, he feels confident, but I don't hear anyone in positions of influence in the region talking about the importance of it. Do we want a pellet mill on the old repap site? I'm sure the answer is yes. But so with the P3 issue, I watched a video of Billy suggesting that Boys Town was a P3. Well, it isn't. It's not a P3. And there's a constituent of mine from Boys Town here today, and they can tell you the same thing. Now, he runs against me, and he can still agree with me on that. But it's funny. But I guess the thing about it is we're thrown into so much BS, and it was said earlier that it's hard to sift through it all and what's really truth and what isn't. Simpson Construction is from Fredericton, I believe. They built the nursing home. They were a New Brunswick company. They hired a few local people. The guy that was the white hat of the entire operation was from, I believe, Taxis River. I mean, that was a very real situation where it was New Brunswick companies, New Brunswick workers, New Brunswick people. But right now, they're not listening. And I'm not going back to the Legislative Assembly until December 1st.
What?
December 1st is when Brian Gallant is calling us back to government. And I can tell you why. Because he doesn't want you and you to protest too often. So I'm going to give you a little strategy. You hold the Legislative Assembly open for the entire months of January and February when it's 30 below with a wind chill. Most people aren't going to go over there and protest because it's going to be freezing. And that is something that I want the people here to know. But at the end of the day, I'm not going anywhere. Newcastle is not my constituency. Although I have people here today that are in my constituency, and I'm happy to see them. I'm not going anywhere. I will be here. I will fight for the community. And I'll do whatever I can to help you, and none of that changes. Thank you.
I got an observation, and maybe Jake, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe you can help me with this. I was interested to hear Cecile's presentation in that she has a stack of emails with the former government's plan for long-term care, investing, refurbishing, no P3s. At the meeting on Thursday night, there are a number of pretty pointed questions asked, and one was specific around why some nursing homes, smaller ones, might not be P3s, despite the fact that the government is saying that all future P3s, or nursing homes will be P3 projects. And the answer, if I remember right, and others will correct me if I'm wrong, was that, well, those deals were made before. And there was some allusion or suggestion that possibly deals were made by the former government to enter into these P3 agreements. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Cecile's emails, and I think she said she would share. So I don't know, Jake, if you were privy to that information when you were with the former government or not. The only thing I would add is I've had the opportunity to have several meetings with the former finance minister, Blaine Higgs. Now, Minister Higgs and I differed substantially on ideology. We didn't see the world through the same lenses. But Higgs was you got to give him credit, he was a smart man.
Yeah.
And in some of the meetings I had with him, he was a businessman. He comes from the Irving Empire. And he told me that that government wouldn't entertain P3s. And as long as he was finance minister, they wouldn't move in that direction because it just didn't make economic long-term sense for a province. So I guess my question is these emails that Cecile says she has, and the way the question was answered at the meeting Thursday night, trying to maybe pass the buck on to a former government.
If I could, I seen a video where Billy was suggesting that. I think somebody recorded him, one of the P3 committee, I think it was on YouTube, if I remember correctly. My involvement in the former government was predominantly with Boys Town. That was the only nursing home in my riding, and it was a file that was one of the highest, if not the highest priority that I had. Now, to my knowledge, we didn't build any P3s. And it's also even more important to note the number of ones we did build. There's one in Stanley, or what's it called, Villa? What's it called? The Villa, and Central New Brunswick in Boys Town, and we built, I think 2 in Moncton. I don't know all the names of them. Yeah, there's one down there. Now, we didn't build any P3s, and it's also important to note that this 240-bed nursing home, that did not exist, as you know, when we were in government. That, as a matter of fact, I think they created it in midair amidst pressure from some influential people, and I don't think they planned it out at all. And I think that's why we're seeing this private-public partnership. But if you look at Route 1, Route 1 is a P3, which was done by Sean Graham's government. It cost $1 billion. I still get emails from truck drivers all over New Brunswick that say the maintenance of that highway is not up to par. I wouldn't be the expert to comment on that, but I certainly get a lot of criticism about that highway, and I got a lot in the winter time as well. But as far as this current 240-bed home, it never existed. We did not build any P3s, and the only one I was really privy to was Central New Brunswick. Those are the best way I can answer that.
Sure. Appreciate it. I'd like to have John.